Okay, so I don't know if you guys know this, but it kind of leaked out, or Joe Rogan said that he invited Pierre Poilievre to his podcast, and I kind of disagree with how Joe Rogan was mocking Pierre Poilievre and how quite a lot of people are like, "Oh, that was a stupid move not to go on this podcast." You need to remember and realize one thing: the Canadian election this year was won thanks to President Donald Trump. The whole agenda that the Liberals based their campaign was President Trump's bad, we're going to fight it against him, against US. The relationship with US is completely broken. Everything that's bad with Canada is thanks to US. So what do you think would happen if Pierre Poilievre went to Joe Rogan? I personally don't think he would lose any conservative voters, but he would definitely not persuade the people who are against America, right? Because Joe Rogan, yes, it's one of the biggest podcasts, and yes, it would probably give him popularity, but he would gain popularity in the US, not in Canada. Because again, this decision was decided thanks to I wouldn't say Canadian hate towards US, but Canadians willing to fight against US. And if you're comparing Pierre Poilievre, which the news and some of the voters did, they compared Pierre Poilievre to President Trump. If you're comparing Pierre Poilievre to President Trump, do you really think it would help Pierre Poilievre to go to Joe Rogan's podcast? I don't think so. Anyway, let's see what's the Toronto Sun's opinion about this one. So, Lyle unleashed, Poilievre's Joe Rogan snap irks conservatives.
Joe Rogan says Pierre Poilievre turned him down. That's annoying some conservatives who think it cost him the election. Hi, I'm Brian Lilly, political columnist with the Toronto Sun.
Sorry.
Yes, it's absolutely true. Joe Rogan reached out to Pierre Poilievre's campaign. He wasn't the only major American media outlet or personality to reach out and say, hey.
Did you notice how he mentioned American? Exactly what I was talking about.
We'd like to talk to you. Well, here's the reality. Pierre Poilievre turned them all down. Here's Rogan talking about this on his podcast on Tuesday.
I offered to have that Pierre guy come on the podcast.
Really?
He didn't do it. Wouldn't do it. Thought it was too problematic. Or whatever. Jordan told me, I forget what he said, but they were telling him not to do it. Like his advisors were telling him not to do it.
What?
Like,
hey,
dumbass.
Hey,
they
man,
can't talk to
how are you?
and have a conversation. Hold up. It's not. You're not grilling people. You're not attacking people.
Of course not.
This is like a safe, the friend zone type thing.
Okay, here are some other people that I can tell you from personal knowledge and experience that reached out to Pierre Poilievre and his team and said, we would like to have you on. Ben Shapiro reached out. Ben not only reached out directly to Pierre Poilievre, he asked me, can you help me get him on?
Why not?
Glenn Beck's team wanted him on. Fox News wanted him on. The Nelk Boys, which is a Canadian-originated podcast, the Full Send podcast, started in Mississauga. It's Canadian and American now. It's got a huge audience. They also asked him on. So why didn't Poilievre go on that? Well, initially it was because they were so far ahead, they didn't need to do podcasts like that. They didn't need to do anything. They were having a 15 to 20 point lead. And
well, initially that was when Justin Trudeau was still running against Pierre Poilievre, and we didn't have such a big issues with Donald Trump. Don't get me wrong, I still think the tariffs are just tip of the iceberg, and Canada was in a pretty bad shape before President Trump got even elected. So blaming President Trump for the situation in Canada is just ridiculous. Who was in power in Canada? Oh, that's right, Liberals. For how long? For 9 years. So don't tell me it's all President Trump. But unfortunately, Liberals used it as a campaign, blamed everything on President Trump, which it's ridiculous that the Canadians believe them.
then when things changed, well, going on American podcasts, that may have driven away some voters. The conservatives were not lacking in young men looking to vote for them, but they were lacking in voters 55 plus, 60 plus, who
there we go.
had originally been with the Conservatives, and were now looking at the Liberals, or had moved over to Carney's camp completely. Why? They were afraid of Donald Trump. So the whole calculus changed. Before, you didn't need them, and yeah.
What do I think of Carney? It's I don't trust him. I'm going to be honest, I don't trust him. I think he's businessman. I think there's a lot of shady things and a lot of things we don't know about him. Just that he didn't disclose all of his assets prior to election. That's definitely a red flag for me. But I'm not gonna lie. So far, I'm surprised with what he's doing. That he's meeting all of the premiers of the provinces, and it looks like he might do something good, but again, I'm very skeptical. I think it's just some of the crazy plans how to calm Canadians down, and let's say in 1 year, 6 months, once the Canadian morale is on the good level again, I think that's when Liberals and Mark Carney will start that's when they start with their own agendas, right? Like bringing back the carbon tax for the households. And yeah, just ridiculous thing is that we still have industrial tax, like industrial carbon tax on steel, when we have tariffs on steel, when we use the steel to build the cars and all of it. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, Canada goes against each other. Instead of getting rid of the carbon tax completely and make it a little bit better when we're facing the tariffs, no, they just leave it there, right? Wait, are you from Czech but just interested in Canadian politics? I actually live in Canada. So yeah, like I said, I think right now Carney is doing something that we did not expect. It looks good, but I think it's only to bring the morale up again, to prevent Alberta from separating, possibly Quebec. Yeah, I'm from Czech Republic. Okay, let's continue with this.
Yeah, sure, there would have been some risk going with an American media outlet. Not that it hurt Mark Carney. He announced on Jon Stewart. He went on all these other American and British media outlets. He did a podcast with Anthony Scaramucci. He turned down a Canadian podcast to go on Scott Galloway's podcast. All of those things. None of that hurt Mark Carney because...
Well, Mark Carney was kind of connected to Democrats in the U.S., right? And it was well known. So as long as he didn't go on Joe Rogan, on Theo Vaughn, I think it would not hurt him. And he was pretty clear with his rhetoric, like, elbows up, we're gonna have an economic war with US, we're not gonna become 51st state and all of that, right? Well, obviously the first meeting looked completely different, but...
Liberals are immune from this. But when a conservative speaks to Americans, especially American Republicans, that is always seen as a bad thing. Anybody that is, anywhere near the conservative side is viewed in Canadian media as bad. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith did an event with Ben Shapiro. Now, I've known Ben Shapiro a long time. Used to have him on my old Sun News Network show. He is someone who knows Canada. His sister lived here. He is someone that gets the economic benefits of the free trade agreement. And guess what? After he appears on stage with Danielle Smith, he's on his show talking to his 9 million member audience about why Trump's tariffs on Canada are wrong. So that was a good thing that Danielle Smith did it. But to Canadian media, this was horrible. She was dealing with a traitor. She was a traitor to her own country for even talking to Ben Shapiro. Can you imagine what would have happened with the mainstream media in Canada, which is what the 55 plus crowd overwhelmingly listens to? I know many of you watching me now are in that category. I get it. I hear you. But you are not the people that Pierre Poilievre needed to reach. Look, I think he should have gone on Joe Rogan. I think he should have accepted some of these other interview requests from American media. But you know what the mainstream media, what the Laurentian elite would have done with this? They would have pulverized him for speaking to Americans.
I mean, like, how crazy is that Mark Carney said on one of his press conferences prior to elections that he's gonna give, I think, $130 million to CBC News. He openly says that he's openly bribing one of the news stations. Like, how is that legal? That's just ridiculous. Like, to me, that's brutal. Like, we all know that the CBC is like towards liberals, right? Like, they like liberals, so obviously they would try to push them through anyway. But like, if on the press conference one of the candidates says, "If I will win, you will get money," that's ridiculous. How did it fly through? Like,
ever. They didn't do it to Carney, but they would have done it to Poilievre.
Oh,
was it a
for sure.
mistake? Perhaps. Would Joe Rogan or someone like him have encouraged Canadians? Joe Rogan has a huge audience in Canada, probably bigger than CBC has in this country. He's the most listened to podcast in the world. Would he have encouraged people who don't normally vote to get out and cast a ballot for the local conservative candidate? Perhaps. And that's what we won't know. But we do know what the reaction would have been in Canada. The Canadian establishment media hates America. They especially hate conservative America. And they don't know conservative America. And so they view anyone that is not of their tribe. They would love it if he spoke to a liberal Democrat. But they hate it if a Canadian ever speaks to someone who is anything but. And they would have pilloried him for that. I understand the reluctance to do this. I understand their decision to say no. But yeah, we're talking Joe Rogan, Ben Shapiro, Glenn Beck, Fox News, the Nelk Boys and the Full Send Comment, all of them reached out, plus many more, to try and get Poilievre on. All were turned down. You can argue about it in the comments, but that is simply the reality. Let me know.
Yeah. I don't know if it was a good move or no. Like I said, I understand the point why he didn't do it. I guess we will never know if it was a good move or no. I was hoping that I'll see Pierre on Joe Rogan. But again, at the same time, I knew how the media and every liberal, how they would twist it. Like, look, Trump was on Joe Rogan. Now Pierre is Joe Rogan. And let's not forget that somehow, for some reason, the conservatives and Republicans are still considered extremists. But Democrats and liberals are the good guys, right? The peaceful ones. When it's not true. Like, it swapped or switched, I don't know how many years ago. Like, now the Democrats and liberals, yes, they're the free spirits and free-minded, but they're pretty extreme. Like, I'm not gonna lie, comparing to conservatives and Republicans who are all about family values and pretty much about the same stuff they were before. And if you look at President Trump right now, he's against the war. He's trying to end the war. He never started a new war. That's something very different than what we were used to from American Republicans, right? So I don't know. I feel like nowadays the Democrats and liberals are the extreme party, and extreme towards normal regular people, right? Unless you're part of, let's say, some identity group. It's not really good for you to vote liberals, but unfortunately, Canadians voted them in. So let's see what's gonna happen. Like I mentioned before, I'm quite surprised with Mark Carney. Still don't really trust him. Still think there's some secret agenda. And I still think after 6 months or after a year, once the public opinion and the Canadian morale is back up, I think he's going to show his true colors. But hey, if we can have a good year, improve economy and everything, I'm all in for it.